Behind the tiaras and protocols, the royal family is just trying to make their way in the world and find love. Anne, Charles, Edward and Andrew's romantic relationships have made headlines, broken hearts and caused outrage, and that's just the start. We're about to take an in-depth look into the love lives of these royal siblings. Princess Anne's suitors had something in common. Be honest, Disney's helped shape your idea of a princess. Are you picturing a quiet little thing waiting for her Prince Charming? The Queen's only daughter is proving that wrong. Princess Anne is one of the hardest working royals, but she has another title we're more interested in. She's quite the femme fatale, with a string of romantic conquests. It all started when she was a teen with cavalry officer Gerald Ward. Tabloids hoped that Gerald and Anne would tie the knot, but she had different ideas and friend-zoned him. That's a good thing because he's Prince Harry's godfather, so romance could have led to awkward family gatherings. But someone did catch Anne's eye. When she was 19, the princess was linked to polo player Sandy Harper. They were seen on late-night dates across London before it all fell apart. Sandy met and married someone else. Despite being invited, Anne skipped the wedding, starting rumors that she was broken-hearted. Instead, she was distracted by Richard Meade, an Olympic equestrian who was super popular thanks to his good looks. Sadly, not everyone liked Meade. Queen Elizabeth was unimpressed with the athlete and forced Anne to break off the relationship. The princess agreed, but she wasn't happy about it. As revenge, she began an even more scandalous relationship. When she was 20 years old, Anne started seeing Andrew Parker Bowles, the guy who later married Camilla. Camilla and Andrew had an on-again, off-again relationship. On one of those breaks, she started seeing Prince Charles, leaving Andrew single. Not for long though, because he started dating Anne in the most awkward love quadrangle ever. But more on that later. For now, all that's important is that the romance turned to friendship, setting the scene for Anne's first wedding to Captain Mark Phillips, another Olympic equestrian. Mark and the princess met in Mexico in 1968 at, you guessed it, a horse event. But it wasn't until 1973, when Andrew Parker Bowles married Camilla, that Mark proposed to Anne. By the end of that year, they'd tied the knot in front of 1,500 guests and 500 million television viewers. It started as a happy marriage. In 1977, they welcomed their son Peter, followed by daughter Zara in 1981. Then things got awkward. Peter and Zara weren't Mark's only children. He had a secret daughter during an affair, and it ruined his marriage. He and Anne separated in 1989 and divorced 3 years later. But he wasn't the only one with extramarital activities. After a few flings, including with her bodyguard Peter Cross, the princess fell in love with someone else. His name was Sir Timothy Laurence. Wanna know a secret? Anne actually started seeing him in 1986, before her divorce was finalized. We only know that because their love letters were stolen and leaked to the press once she announced her separation from her husband. After that scandal died down, Laurence proposed and they married in 1992 at a low-key event in Scotland because the Church of England didn't allow remarriages. They're still happily married. So what makes Timothy so special? Maybe it's just that he's the only one of Anne's suitors with zero interest in horses. Prince Edward found the one early on. Media outlets like Town and Country often report that Prince Edward is his parents' favourite, and we think we know why. Unlike all his siblings, he's the only one who hasn't got divorced or been embroiled in an epic scandal. Well, kind of. After graduating from Cambridge in 1986, Edward opted for a career in entertainment, and that's how he met his future wife. Edward met Sophie Rhys-Jones at Capital Radio in 1987 after being introduced by a mutual friend. He was definitely intrigued, but she was in a relationship, so nothing happened between them. Yet, 6 years later, they reconnected at a charity event and sparks started to fly. Soon after, they secretly began dating. But there was a problem. Edward was totally head over heels for Sophie, and if you're wondering how that could be an issue, just think of how much the media loves the royal romance. The prince knew that if he married Sophie, her life would change forever, and he didn't want her to be under scrutiny, so he dumped her instead. For 5 seconds, because he immediately realized he'd made a massive mistake and begged her to take him back, and proposed. She said yes, and they married in 1999. Amazingly, they almost didn't say their I do's. Just weeks before the wedding, old topless photos of Sophie sunbathing were leaked to the press. Soon, the Countess of Wessex's assets were on the front page of every newspaper. The bride-to-be was humiliated, and her future in-laws were not impressed. And it got worse. In 2001, Sophie fell victim to the media in a different way. She was unknowingly recorded saying some unpleasant things about top politicians like Tony Blair and torn apart in the tabloids. Luckily, she hadn't said anything nasty about the royal family, or there would have been even more drama when the tapes were leaked. The couple's nightmare year wasn't over. The Countess was also rushed to the hospital after suffering complications during a pregnancy and lost the baby. But by 2003, the scandals were over, and Edward and Sophie welcomed their daughter, Lady Louise, to the world. Their son James made his appearance 4 years later, completing the happy family. Since then, Edward and his wife have been the perfect royal couple. But not all the Queen's children have had happy marriages. Prince Andrew is the king of scandal. Of all the Queen's children, Prince Andrew is the most familiar with gossip surrounding his love life. After all, he's been making headlines in that department for decades. It started in 1981 when he met actress and photographer Koo Stark. They were introduced through mutual friends and immediately hit it off. In fact, after just 18 months together, Andrew was ready to pop the question. But it wasn't meant to be. Just as he was getting ready to commit, the media unearthed one of Koo's decade-old movies featuring a raunchy sex scene. After that, the relationship ended pretty quickly, but Andrew found a silver lining. In 1982, he was introduced to someone special, a childhood friend of Princess Diana's called Sarah Ferguson. Once Diana saw the chemistry between her friend and her brother-in-law, she suggested Sarah attend the 1985 Royal Ascot. Here, she and Andrew hit it off because a year later they were engaged and married. The prince proposed in the same spot they kissed for the first time, at Flaws Castle in Scotland, with a ring containing a ruby to complement Sarah's red hair. It gave us all the warm fuzzies because nobody could have predicted the shocking events that would lead to the end of the marriage a decade later. In 1988, Sarah gave birth to her daughter Beatrice, and Eugenie followed 2 years later. But there was already problems in her marriage. Andrew was away for work constantly, and he and Sarah drifted apart. Just 2 years after Eugenie was born, her parents separated. The same year, racy pics were published of Sarah smooching an American businessman, and she was shunned by the royal family, officially divorcing Andrew in 1996. It was the end of their marriage, but the start of the prince's Casanova period. In 1999, he befriended the now notorious Jeffrey Epstein, and it caused major shockwaves because the prince was implicated in Epstein's dodgy dealings. A woman called Virginia Roberts accused Andrew of abusing her in Epstein's presence when she was 17. Despite Andrew and the palace denying the charges, it was just the start. After his divorce, Andrew wasted no time playing the field. In 2000, he was linked to Ghislaine Maxwell, who was accused of acting as a madam for Epstein. The same year, he was spotted with Playboy bunny and actress Denise Martel and ITV star Caroline Stanbury, although she denied rumors of romance. He then started dating businesswoman and model Amanda Stavely in 2001, and it was serious. She helped him decorate his home, and he proposed to her in 2003. But Amanda turned him down, telling the media if I'd married him, my independence would have disappeared. Andrew didn't seem too hurt though, because he was spotted with someone later that year, actress and model Angie Everhart. When their relationship ended 5 years later, there were rumors that it was the Queen's doing. And the girls kept coming. Andrew was next seen with Filipino model Alexandra Escart in 2010 and George Clooney's ex, model Monica Jakasic, in 2014. And still, there's more. It seems that he may have come full circle because his newest possible relationship is with his ex-wife. That's not even the craziest thing about this relationship. Despite being divorced for 2 decades and his numerous flings, the prince and his ex-wife still live together. Now, fans are wondering if there's more to their living arrangements than meets the eye. Could they be falling back in love? Maybe, maybe not. Sarah seems happy with the way things are, saying, "We always say we're the most contented divorced couple in the world. We're divorced to each other, not from each other. But who knows what the future holds." It wouldn't be the first time one of the royals reconnected with an old flame. Prince Charles had options, but no time. Prince Andrew wasn't the only one with ties to multiple women. His brother Charles had several admirers and something Andrew never had: permission to pursue them. You see, Charles was advised by his uncle, Lord Mountbatten, to sow his wild oats and have as many affairs as he can. So he did, only with a catch. He gave himself a deadline for these relationships. He was determined to get married at 30. That's not the way things worked out, though. Charles's first taste of romance came with Lucia Santa Cruz, the daughter of a Chilean ambassador. They met in 1967, and though she was 5 years older, Charles was ready to commit. But Lucia wasn't ready to settle down. Instead, in 1971, she introduced Charles to someone who was, Camilla Shand. When Charles met Camilla, he was instantly smitten. He started writing her love letters, and 6 months later they were dating. But it was short-lived. The couple broke up in 1972 when Charles left for the Navy. When he returned, it was to an unexpected shock. Camilla was engaged to someone else. She married Princess Anne's ex-beau, Andrew Parker Bowles, in 1973. So Charles started looking for his own happy ending. First, he dated Lady Jane Wellesley, but quickly broke up because she had no desire to be queen or to face the media attention. His relationship with Lady Sarah Spencer ended for the same reason. However, Lady Spencer played a very important role in Charles's love life because she introduced him to her sister, Diana. But first, he was involved with Sabrina Guinness. Despite being close, they called it quits on the advice of the Queen, who never liked Sabrina's love of partying. Her replacement was Lady Amanda Knatchbull, the second woman Charles proposed to and the second to turn him down because of her fear of the spotlight. That didn't stop him from trying again with Anna Wallis in 1980. But there was added pressure. 1980 was also the year Charles turned 30, which, if you remember, is when he promised to get married. Time was running out, and in desperation, he proposed. Only she also refused to marry him. Twice. So he called it quits. And now it gets interesting. There are rumors that the real reason for their split wasn't the dismissed proposals. It was because Charles had started seeing Camilla again. If that's true, it's exactly what ruined his relationship with the woman who finally did agree to marry him. Diana and Charles reconnected in 1980. After a few months of dating, his parents suggested he commit or break things off with Diana. He chose to propose, and the next year they tied the knot. But as everyone now knows, there were 3 people in that marriage, and it ended in disaster. A month after a very public affair with Camilla, Charles and Diana separated in 1992 and divorced in 1996. A year later, Diana was killed, and Charles and Camilla officially rekindled their romance 35 years after meeting. At least someone got a happy ending? For more information on Charles and Diana's turbulent relationship, check out our video detailing her final months. Thanks for watching.